Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Trading Secrets. This channel is for entertainment purposes only. For those of you who do not know, my name is Ali. I have over 20 years experience teaching accounting, economics, business and law. Through this channel I'll be providing some stock analysis and a quick update on the $1 Million Challenge. If anybody's not aware of this is a journey of an investment of $1,000 to a return of $1 million over a period of 3 years using a strategy called compound return investing. So the objective is try to get 201 trades, each with an average return of 3.5%. It's not 201 consecutive trades, do take into account losses. So for further details about how to join us for less than $9 a month, information is available in the description below. In the previous video we looked at MMTLP and the focus was on an update from the ham short killer, so please refer back to the previous video for those updates. In today's video we're going to be looking at MMTLP, and the focus of today's video is all you need to know with regard to a class action. So we're going to be looking at the reasons for this in the future and what it means, what it may cost and what the implications are for it. So stay tuned for that. So before we make a start, let's have a look at what's happening in the market. So this upcoming week will be a 4-day week. There will be no trading on the Monday, and headline here from Yahoo Finance, the key decision this week from the Fed is going to be the jobs data. So that is expected 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time Friday. So in terms of the overall performance for the year, we can see here that the S&P 500 2022 was down very, very close to 20%. But what we can see here is the vast majority of years are in green, and we've never ever had two consecutive reds. So hopefully 2023 is a very positive year and a strong recovery year for the market. So let's start by having a look at the initial suggestion with regard to class action. So what I posted here earlier a few days ago. So let's start by having a look at how the idea of a class action first came to my attention. So I did post here on 28th of December and I stated if there are 64,000 investors of MMTLP and if everybody put in, let's say for example, $15 each, we would have the legal right to file the largest class action in trading history. So this has been done many times before. So one example is Enron. They reached an out-of-court settlement of $7.2 billion. Obviously, the key thing that I think many people may not have read in this tweet is what I've stated here is we will wait for any behind-the-scenes negotiations before making our decision. So no decision on a class action just yet, but it's an option that we should not rule out, and I'm certainly in favour of it if all avenues pursued have been exhausted. So I did get a reply from John Berder, and for those of you who are in the space chat, this was one of the topics that we talked about, so you can refer back to the space chat from the previous Friday, where this was hosted by Syntax and also guest appearance by John Berder, Rosa and myself. So what John Berder has said just as one idea, obviously Ali, I am in, can we do a GoFundMe page? So that is something that we can consider, although I did get some comments to say that alternatives would be better. But let's have a look at what John is also saying here. First of all, he's saying here that the attorneys they are talking to, so remember there is legal consequences and actions going on behind the scenes, but what John is saying in the background, the attorneys that he's currently working with also do a class action and they would want to review the potential of that as well. So this is great news, and he's also said this is just the beginning. So John is open to exploring all avenues and like ourselves is certainly not going to give up the fight. So a few more ideas here. He thinks that one idea could be to use a trust account, spend what is needed, then maybe refund the remainder, and potentially let the people who contribute to this class action get their money back, as well as any settlement. Let's now have a look at what the class action could first of all cover. So in one of the previous videos I covered 10 potential illegal implications, and these start from the restraint on trade. We're looking at fraud, misrepresentation, shorts not covering, breach of contract, Rule 203B, Rule 204. So there are a number of these, but now let's focus on class action. So before we look at class action, which I've identified as action number 10 at the bottom. So action number 10 is something, just to remind you, is not something that's happening right now. This is something that we're going to keep as an option. So let's have a look at the wider picture in terms of the short term and where we are right now. So we currently have change.org, there's campaigns there, and I'm sure everybody's registered there. We have complaints to FINRA, the SEC and obviously the FTC. complaints to brokers, complaints to senators and Congress. We also have Rosa's action for equitable relief, which is for the violation of the Sherman Act. Approaches to media and journalists, and John Berder has also taken part in the Charles interview on Fox Business as well. We have marathon space chats, mostly provided by Marduk, and also guest appearances by Syntax as well. We are obviously, in the previous video, I talked about complaining to the IRS with regards to tax implications of hedge funds and shorts not covering. And most important, the one that people probably not taking note of, is that they're also behind the scenes actions which the company's legal team are still obviously involved in. So this is something that we will not be hearing about out in the open, especially in social media, because this was potentially going to be quite sensitive and delicate, so it will not be shared. But let's move over to class action. So class action is something in the medium term or long term, but it is only if needed. So this is going to be something after all avenues are exhausted. But one thing to remember is the class action is not going to give us our 2 trading days back. So by the time we get to the point of do we start a class action for getting the 2 days back, well, first of all, that's not going to happen. So the class action will be for obviously monetary compensation and obviously to right a wrong and make sure the people who have carried out shall we say unethical and illegal practices are held to account. Let's now start by having a look at what is a class action. So we head over to the investor.gov page. We can see here, if we focus on the second paragraph down, in a securities class action, that's the one that we're going to be focusing on. Shareholders, and that is us, who purchased or sold the company's securities during a specific period of time, known as the class period, usually allege the company and its officers and directors violated the federal state securities laws. So I think much of that does apply to us. So first of all, we did purchase, and we also believe that obviously state and securities laws were not complied with, were not followed with. However, in our class action, we are not going to be taking that against the company. The class action, again, this is something that will be open to debate, but as far as I'm concerned right now, it's probably going to look at brokers, it's going to look at hedge funds, and it's going to be looking at FINRA. But obviously this is still not all confirmed. It's still something that we will review and agree on. Now have a look at the key takeaways with regard to class actions in terms of information that you need to be aware of, especially if you're going to consider joining a future class action if it happens. So first of all, this is going to be a legal course where the plaintiff, that will be us, brings forward a lawsuit for the benefit of a larger group of affected people. So that will be all of the shareholders. The class must attest that they were affected by the defendant's actions. So I think certainly in our case, we were deprived of our right to a squeeze. But remember, in terms of the class action, this is not going to be something that is going to give us back the 2 days, but it is something that we're going to use to get some kind of monetary value back because of that problem. And often it states here, often the only way for individuals to pursue their claims as it lowers the cost. So there is power in size, there is obviously strength in unity, and obviously the more people that join, the lower the cost that it will be. So in terms of any awards are paid out amongst all members who join the class action, although it may not necessarily be the equal amounts, and we will be looking at obviously maybe an agreement potentially where it's subject to the number of shares that you hold. So let's now have a look at some recent the biggest class action settlements so far. So the number one biggest so far was the tobacco settlements, and this is the biggest ever, and that was a class action settlement for $206 billion. Second place, the BP Gulf of Mexico oil spill, that was $20 billion. Volkswagen emission scandal, $14.7 billion. And for securities fraud, Enron, that was $7.2 billion. And there are many, many more. In terms of the recent one that I think is interesting, and that is with regard to FTX. So have a look at the article here. There was a lawsuit filed on December the 27th, and this was in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the District of Delaware. 4 plaintiff claims to represent the whole class of former FTX customers, and we're looking at a potential 1 million individuals. So they're going to seek to obtain the priority rights or to return digital assets currently held by FTX. So I'm fairly confident that this class action will result in some kind of success, but obviously we will have to wait and see. And then finally, just a quick look at what happened with Enron. This was a $7.2 billion and this settlement, and that involved claim in terms of the energy company defrauding shareholders prior to declaring bankruptcy. So we're looking at 1.5 million individual and institutional investors were expected to receive payments. So that's the amount of people who joined the class action. In our case, we're looking at a maximum, I think, 64,000 approximate shareholders, so much smaller here, but certainly it's something that you may wish to consider, but it will not be compulsory. Let's now have a look at approval of any proposal. So under the guidelines here, we can see the class representatives and class counsel have adequately represented the class. So everybody must be represented fairly. We can also see that the proposal was negotiated at arm's length. So that is something that we will do certainly in advance before any class action is agreed or obviously started. There will be lots of negotiation and there will be lots of obviously information shared, and this is something that I'm sure everybody will be made aware of, and then it will be up to you to make a decision. The relief provided for the class action is adequate, so obviously we will obviously make it clear in terms of what the potential solutions and how they may affect you going forward if we get to that stage. In terms of the fees, the other thing we need to know here, attorney fees and non-taxable costs in a certified class action. The court may award reasonable attorney fees and non-taxable costs. So this is a bonus. If depending on obviously the outcome, there is also a possibility here that attorney fees may be refunded, which will be obviously a stronger benefit for us taking the class action if that is the case. So that's good, but not guaranteed. And final thing here I want to look at is Rule 23. So this is with regard to also class action. So obviously we can see here the class is so numerous the joinder of the remaining members is impractical. Obviously there are many people. We all have equal obviously claims of something that is similar. We've all been denied our opportunity to participate in a free and fair market with our hard-earned money. The second thing, question of law of fact common to the class. We've all been victims of the same obviously situation in terms of the laws not being followed and agreed, as shared earlier in the video. Claims of defence of the representative parties are typical of the claim. So they will have the same defence against me, you and everyone else. So they're not going to have different defences against different people. So that ticks that box there. The next thing, representative parties will fairly and adequately protect the interests of the class. So that is something that obviously we will agree on, and everybody in there we should get fair protection as well. Finally, I'd like to give a shout out to Russ, who's posted an excellent form. So what is the reason for this form? First of all, before anybody has any concerns, the form is completely private. You do not need to give your telephone number, you don't need to give your date of birth, or there's no credit card details. You don't need to put in your home address. So the only thing that is required from you is how many shares you have, your email address, and the name of your broker. So they would be appreciated. So what is the reason for this? The reason for this is going to help us understand how many shares are counterfeit that compared to how many shares actually really exist. So far we have been unable to get official figures, especially from FINRA, the company, the DTC, AST. Everyone seems to be passing the buck, the brokers as well. So we are doing the groundwork ourselves. So special thanks to Russ for doing this. And I think so far the results have been shared as well. So go ahead and check them out. It's certainly looking very interesting. And finally, if you'd like to get a copy of our weekly watch list as well as access to our daily stock alerts, you can certainly join our Discord for less than $9 a month, and this will give you access to the $1 Million Challenge as well as opportunity to participate in live trading discussions. So in the previous week's stock weekly watch list, we called out stocks such as MTR, that was up 9% on the week, ARDX up 22% on the week, ORIC, that was up 25% on the week, TGTX, that was up 36% on the week, and in our daily stock alerts we called out KALA. I'm sure you saw that was up in excess of 956% on the week, and I know a number of people possibly sold this a little bit too early, but it's always good to sell in green certainly, and then hold on and then watch it come down very, very quickly. So finally, thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned.